I will now introduce Catherine Liu, Professor of Film and Media at the University of California, Irvine, who is going to give the presentation on the agony of the PMC.
So thank you for organizing this. This is like the most exciting intellectual thing I've done in 2 months. I've been in survival mode and I'm just like weirdly unable to think straight. But when Tom gave me this opportunity, I was really happy to do this. And what I'm actually going to do is talk through, so if you don't mind, I'm just going to talk through all of my slides. It's pretty casually put together because I am not really able to think straight, but I think there's some good information there in here, and I'm going to share my screen. And if you could save your questions till the end, that would be great, unless I can see you guys in the chat, and you can raise your hands in the chat or someone can tell me what is going on. So the agony of the PMC, we're going to get to that agony. We're going to look a little bit at prestige hoarding. We're going to look at how we can break apart the budget, and then maybe this is the most utopic aspect of this talk. I'm going to suggest that there are possibilities for us or a group like you guys or someone to be organized. It could be the academic senate, but I think they're a bit moribund right now. There could be a major demand for infrastructural change from within the university, but I'm going to build up to that slowly, I think. Not slowly, but whatever. So so the big question is, I'm going to put this down here. There are a lot of articles in business magazines and trade press saying that the pandemic is going to lead to the collapse of small liberal arts colleges that are not so highly ranked, research to public universities, and some research to private universities. And so there's a lot of talk about that. People said that too, right after the 2008 financial crisis, but the disruption, quote unquote, didn't actually happen in the way that business commentators and economists predicted. But we have the same level of prediction right now that's coming. That's it's not hand wringing. It's just trade economic press going through a prediction model. You'll remember that after 2008, we had a lot of, we're all going to go online, we're going to teach MOOCs, whatever his name is, like Robot Man, AI Man, and Stanford is teaching 100,000 people AI from Stanford, and the university's over. But I almost feel like these economists, these trade press journalists, for them, this kind of prediction of the end of higher education is wish fulfillment. It's not really serious. We can think about that more seriously and what that means. But, we have been here before, although this is so much more extreme what we're experiencing. We have experienced, though, however, I want to just remind us, versions of this. So I wanted to point you to two studies, and I will share this with Tom. I'm not going to go to the Napolitano announcement in the LA Times that she's going to take a 10% pay cut, and all of the chancellors, who I wrote them as chancellors, are going to take a 10% pay cut. And I think that what they're doing is they're getting everyone ready for pay cuts by saying, and they're going to say, we took 10% pay cuts. And I want to say, like, the average chancellor makes $400,000 to $500,000 a year and has like a number of unquantifiable perks. Like our chancellor lives in a free house, and he probably makes at this point probably $490,000 a year. It's all public information, but every chancellor in the UC makes what a salary that would put them in the 1%, that classical 1% that Occupy Wall Street talks about, but also my favorite book to consult in these dark times. You can't see it. Oh, you can't see it. Capital and capital in the 21st century. So they are the 1%. They're not the most highly paid people on the UC campuses. It's actually professors, medical school professors and researchers, some business school people too. But Ask Me came out recently with a study by their research director, Claudia Prepared, I love her name, but they gave the numbers to Napolitano and said, it's possible for the UC to weather the storm without giving anyone a pay cut. But I think it's interesting that the chancellors have gone out ahead of the game and said, we're taking the pay cut. It's a very different thing for someone who has a $500,000 salary, no housing costs, a huge, I'm sure research funds and everything else. Actually, I don't know if chancellors get research funds. Let's say they make $500,000 a year and their house is paid for. If they take a pay cut of 10%, it's $50,000. That's a lot of money. Not to them, though, I'm going to argue. However, this is a great PR move for Napolitano because it's getting ready for the pay cuts for everyone else. And for someone like who's in the Ask Me union, who works as in the janitorial staff or the service staff, who makes $29,000 a year, a $2,900 pay cut is going to be devastating for them. So I'm really glad that Ask Me has gone forward and said, here's what we think UC can do. It can use the CARES Act. It can use all these different strategies to survive the crisis without giving over a pay cut. I haven't seen this report yet. It just came out yesterday. I'd like to see it. And I think it's really important for us to get with the unions on this and figure out what they're doing. So what happened to my slides? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and then, why did I get out of my slides? Sorry. I thought I was so good at this, but I'm not really. Okay, here I am back in my slides. I'm going to share my screen again. All right, I'm not going to close that up again. So here we go. So I thought the union study, nobody takes a pay cut. Napolitano makes this kind of gesture of noblesse oblige that chancellors will take a 10% pay cut. And I link here to the UC budget, but I don't know if we'll have time for me to go through the UC budget. It's a very slick and uninformative pamphlet. Kind of afraid of going there now because I screwed up with my links. But one of the things that it shows is, shall I go there? I'll go there. Okay, we'll risk it. Big deal. Okay, yeah, it's right there. Okay, so this is before the pandemic. This is what the Napolitano's office produced to be approved by the regents. And, it's pretty slickly produced. And here is where she talks about the sources of university funding. So you'll see that tuition and fees is now 10.7%. Sales and services, this is parking, people. When the UC says it's lost like $90 million when closing early, UCI said that, and Berkeley said, the whole UC system has lost like $300 million closing. It's because they're forgetting about parking. So they've got to renounce parking. So the state general funds now only funds 10.3% of the UC budget. And then there's this nice magenta thing that I'm going to talk about a lot more because it has an outsized influence on what happens at the UC. It's philanthropy. And in my view, it shouldn't even be there because we're a public university. But a lot of privately driven donors have, a lot of private donors have been shaping the UC projects. I will talk to you guys about what I think that means, what I think that meant in the UC, but here's what our revenues look like, right? Okay, state general funds, UC general funds right now. Student,
Catherine,
yeah.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but we are just seeing the slide. I don't think that we are seeing the budget.
Oh,
But if you text it to Tom, he can drop it into the chat.
that's so weird. Okay. Okay. Sorry.
One of the many reasons Zoom is like the
Oh,
worst.
wow. That's so weird. Okay. So you guys can't see the budget, but so what I was going to say was there's a huge, let me just say that in their expenditures, I'm sorry you can't see this, faculty and staff salary is huge, is 48% of our expenditures. Benefits are 20% of our expenditures. Equipment, supplies, and utilities are 17%. Financial aid is 15%. So I just wanted you guys to keep in mind, like, the total budget is $9.3 billion. I'm so sorry you can't see this. Let me mail it to Tom. And then I just want you to keep in mind that number 20%, which is benefits. It's not just retirement benefits, it's also health insurance. And it's a very, very large chunk of money, along with, the salaries. Oh wait, Tom, send this to you. It's so weird. Okay, I am not going to tap on my links anymore. Here you go. So it's UC UCOP. Budget summary, if you guys are interested in looking at it, I always think of it as a fictional, it's a very rough budget because the numbers always seem way too round, but here we go. So sorry, you guys can't see that. Okay, here we go. So you can only see this. Sorry, but so if I click on my links, you guys can't see it. I'm so sorry because I have all of this stuff about the philanthropical projects and that are happening at UCI. And there's a whole office called Advancement. And I encourage you to look at the advancement pages to familiarize yourself with what their projects are. Think about like how much money they have. There's a $1 billion capital project, capital fund fundraising thing. There's been one ever since I've been here, and it's 16 years. And every time they announce this, they're like, it's a big deal. They're all happy, and somehow they achieve it, and somehow we never see like any benefit from it, especially you guys, graduate students never see any benefit from these billion-dollar fundraising projects that Advancement, this huge office at UCI does. And I feel like they're notoriously actually bad, but they set these goals and they say they reach these goals. There are a lot of people in these offices. They all make money. Most of them are not in any way related to academics. Every school in the university has at least 3, 4, 5 advancement officers. I'm sure they're all making over $100,000. I can't find their salaries. I actually can't find the budget breakdown of UCI to find out how much money advancement costs us and how much money they're actually bringing in. So I'm sure if I did a FOIA, if I had more time before this talk, somebody would give me some information. I'm not sure how much information, but these are all projects that's UCI COLA that unions, the student unions can start, your union can start asking about, and I'll build up to it. And so I have this whole link here with where you'll like see all these pictures of people at UCI you will never ever come across in your time here, because I don't see how you guys would. Who are they? They look like, wealthy Newport mortgage brokers to me, which is fine. Those people, I have no problems with those people. I just don't know what they're doing working at UCI or any UC for that matter. But so what they do, because I have had some contact with our development people, because I wanted them to bring in more Chinese speaking donors, what they actually do is talk to what they call high net worth individuals. And these are wealthy entrepreneurs, business people in our area, a lot of real estate people, some very high medical, instrument people, people like Bill and Sue Gross, who ran PIMCO for a while. And they sell the idea of becoming a donor to UCI to them. And these are people who are, at least in our area, because of the nature of the wealth in our area, which is very different from Santa Barbara, because Santa Barbara has a lot of wealthy people who are rentiers. They live on interest. In our area, it's like a lot of strivers, a lot of wealthy entrepreneurs who made it in one generation, like Emil Haddad, in a 5-point billionaire real estate developer, Donald Bren, self-made man also. They are rentiers now, but they still have businesses that are very profitable, and they're running those businesses. And they are the 0.1%. And they talk to people who are, they get to talk to the chancellors who are in the 1%. And I would say those who serve their needs within the university, the advancement people, they are in the top 9%. And Piketty breaks down all of these differences and these stratas in really really interesting ways. And he calls the top 9% super managers. And I would say that most professors are now in the bottom of the top 9%. Maybe just the very bottom, and the top level administrators and advancement are, in the middle to top of the top 9%. Medical school, econ, law professors, they are at the top of the 9%, if not in the 1%. And I was also wondering, like, well, so what else don't I understand? Who are other people I never see at the university? And there's this huge growth at UCI, and Tom and I did this whole thing on wellness. There's a huge student wellness office at UC Irvine. There is a director of student wellness, and he has changed. The woman who was brought in to do this is now gone. No announcement. I don't know why she's gone. I did actually have to deal with her about some issues. And we have a new director of student wellness. What is the budget on that office? Why is that office in existence? We've known, studies have shown that improvement of mental health happens when you give people more money, when you give them a higher salary. So I'm just wondering, like, where the puppies are coming from that are supposed to de-stress you during finals times. Where's all that information about? Where they're yoga teachers, they're meditation people, they're, people who are creating all these programs online to give you more wellness. Where's that money coming from? And why does it seem that no one cares about a very basic aspect of wellness? I'm talking about graduate students now. The undergraduates are a different issue. The very basic improvement in mental health that takes place when you pay people more money. It's really simple, actually. There's no mystery to improvements in mental health for employees. But I guess they don't see students as workers. They see students as students who need to be cuddled somehow and given puppies when they feel bad. Whatever. I'm not going to go to the budget office. It's very obscure. There are very few numbers. I've gone through it. I encourage you guys to look through it. I would love to have a meeting with an organized group of people to go to the chancellor and say, I'd like more numbers on this, because we have some ideas about how we can weather this storm by refocusing on the academic core. But if you look at the UC Irvine budget, it's very hard to really understand what's happening there. And I'm not even talking about the overhead in laboratories that we have to pay for when the scientists get an NIH grant. That's like a whole other can of worms that Chris Newfield has talked about If you haven't read his books, it's really interesting. He does a very careful breakdown of the UC budgets, and he says tuition generating units without high overhead, like the humanities and the social sciences, actually fund the sciences, because if you get a $50 million NIH grant to run your laboratory, your universe, that looks really good for PR, but it's still the university that has to pay for compliance, that has to pay for the infrastructure of where that laboratory is going to go, that has to pay oftentimes for the what benefits for all of the laboratory employees that you're going to employ. So all of this stuff comes at great cost, but that's a whole other topic. I'd like to look at like humanities budgets versus STEM field budgets and see like what the differences are and how and why we're treated like, the crazy people at the university right now, and they're like the real people, which is ridiculous to me. But and I'm not an anti-science person either. Let's just say I like scientists, sort of. But so now I've talked a little bit about the infrastructure. I'm kind of going at it backwards, but one way that we can see, and I'm not going to click the links because you can't see the links. One way we can see how a level of primitive accumulation is occurring within the private university system is to see how good their development and advancement programs are, because ours are really sucky compared with, what Harvard does, what Princeton does. Harvard has the largest endowment, but Princeton has the largest endowment per student. I think Princeton has $3 million per student in endowment because their student body is very small. Harvard has, $1 billion, many billions of, maybe it's 9 billion, but I'm really afraid to click through the links now. The top universities with the largest endowments have billion-dollar endowments, multi-billion-dollar endowments. This means that that they can live on interest, that their endowments, when the stock market is going well, is producing enormous amounts of income. They become rentier-like. They're like the little Lords Fauntleroy of our world. They are the aristocrats, and yet they pretend that they want to diversify the elites through financial aid. They need to constantly raise money because they want to handpick those 5 poor kids from some underprivileged area and pay them like a huge financial aid package. And they want to handpick those, another 5 working class kids that they're going to put in under enormous pressure in the pressure cooker of their elite system. Now, here's an interesting fact, though. When I was doing research on this, the second largest endowment in the endowment to student number is actually Soka University down in Lake Forest. I don't know how that, I guess they have very few students, and they're very, very well endowed by Buddhist donors. But they're having problems with, they really stick out because the other giant endowments and giant number of dollars per student endowments places are all Ivy League institutions, as you would expect. And what they've done is they've created a model for the public university to mimic at this point, is to grow your endowment, and that endowment represents the primitive accumulation of prestige. So I don't think, I think that their endowments do not produce diversity. They do not, they contribute to the joke of American meritocracy, and they exacerbate economic inequality. So on my most radical days, and I'll say that not my most, when I'm really like, alone and, thinking crazy thoughts, I think, what we should do? We should just dissolve the endowments of all the top 100 private universities or top 10 private universities. And then we take that money, we can forgive student loans, we make everything free for everyone else, because those places now, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, MIT, Caltech, because it has a really big endowment per student, MIT, as you might imagine, these are places now that are educational institutions that hide behind that they're hedge funds or giant stock holding companies that hide behind an educational institution's facade anyway. But what I was going to say is that with this configuration, with the $1 trillion of student loan debt that people have assumed in order to pursue higher education when the whole system is so rigged, what we have is higher education that really serves the 1% by creating and pacifying. This is, most of what the class that I belong to, a docile PM professional managerial class, a docile 9% who believe that they can also become 1%ers. They're super managers, and this is how the structure works. And I'm just like, you know what? After the revolution, no educational institution should be allowed to hold an endowment, period. But that's, and we should be thinking about things like this, because I think we are reaching a kind of social and economic collapse, and only the right has big scaled up plans. The left has to have big scaled up plans. So here are some suggestions I have and please someone tell me if I'm like going on for too long. Here's some concrete suggestions that I have for cutting public university budgets so that they can, so we can better serve our students and our employees, instead of having the chancellors just take that 10% pay cut, which is all getting ready, which is a preparation for us to take a pay cut that will have much more impact on us. I would say, let's start by cutting the advancement departments. Those high net worth individuals, let's not court them anymore. And at a more, on an even more radical level, let's fire all chancellors, EVCs, and assistant EVCs, every single one of them from the UC system, and let's recruit from the faculty to take those positions. This is what they did in German universities. I'm not saying like they were great. They were all so patriarchal and condescending. It was all a bunch of men who like rotated in and out of these positions in the 19th century, up to the 20th century, up until today. But their chancellors are elected by their entire faculty. We already have a faculty senate, which is supposed to be like a shadow cabinet, shadow government to our administration. Dissolve that faculty senate, but use its structures to actually create a voting situation where everyone can vote. Everyone at the university who gets a paycheck can vote for chancellors and all of these other EVCs and assistant EVCs positions if we need to. And you can get like a $15,000, $25,000, pay increase when you occupy that office, and then you give it up when you go back to being a faculty member. It's easy. I don't, usually I like go to the crowd, but I can't do that. So then we use the dean appointment system for deans as well. The dean level, we use an election system as well from the faculty. We don't go out and recruit like super deans or super managers and pay them $400,000 and then pay their wives $400,000, or I shouldn't say what, husbands $400,000 because we need the talent. No, we say, let's just elect people within us. Let's cut all contracts with temporary labor management agencies. That was a money-saving technique that they used because the university did not want to pay for its food services any longer as UC employees. This is not a money-saving strategy. The other strategies I've detailed are money saving. We will have to pay our food services people living wages and get away from these very, very shadowy private contractors who also provided, who provide catering for the green zone in Iraq. We no longer, the UC should no longer give a penny to places like that. And then we ensure through these various rearrangements that everyone from the lowest employee, if you get a paycheck, you get COLA and you earn COLA through the UC. And then because you've taken away all of these encrusted weird things that have appointed themselves to us through this 9% catering to the 1% who then caters to the 0.1%, we take our resources and we reinvest in the academic core. And I have some ideas about other cuts too, and people have actually suggested that this thing called CalBrite, which costs us now $138 million a year and only serves 523 students, is an online community college that offers things like courses like coding. It's really insulting to people to only offer them vocational education in this online setting. RCC community colleges and Cal States and UCs do a great job now. We've all gone online. Cut that thing off. That's $138 million right there. And it was an initiative that the UC adopted when Jerry Brown was governor under pressure from Silicon Valley, because they were like, oh, we need more workers, so you can help us train these workers when you go online, and this online education that we'll give you technology for. And it's not working. It's not working. It's not educating enough people. The quality of the courses seems really poor to me. I mean, just limited in its curriculum. We're online right now. We can deliver really good online things. This is like a no-brainer. This was like this was a completely cooked up idea to serve like a working class or what they call non-traditional students with this ridiculously named CalBrite institution. Forget it. Cut that. And then I want to suggest that we stop, and I've said, we should just cancel advancement, and we should stop raising money from rentiers now. The thing that gets me so mad, this guy who is still, should I look at my chat? Is there any other questions and things like that? Oh, yes, I am going to share all of these slides. I'm going to share them with Thomas and he can share them because I want to click to them, but you guys can't see them. Richard Blum, Dianne Feinstein's husband, is a billionaire who has a hedge fund, right? Investment fund. He has endowed the 10 UC campuses with this hilariously titled thing called the Blum Center for the Alleviation of Poverty. I say shame on us for having taken a penny of his money, and shame on the faculty who agreed to support this, who agreed to launder his conscience. Because basically what he's done is, instead of paying taxes on his billions, on his interest, on his capital gains, he has given money to endow these centers for the alleviation of poverty. Well, you know what, Richard Blum? Our students are living in poverty. Dissolve those centers and give the money to our students. He is Dianne Feinstein's husband, and he invested in for-profit universities from 2007 to 2010 while serving as a UC regent, and he is still a UC regent. He was investing in for-profit universities at a time when the austerity cuts to the Cal States and the UCs were so great that our undergraduates could not get the courses that they needed. And so they might have had to go to a for-profit university to get some of their general education courses. This is a conflict of interest, if I've ever seen, so glaring, but it is just completely ignored. Because he loves the UC, allegedly, and he loves to alleviate poverty, and we can't get rid of him. These are the kind of people who serve as UC regents. The story about his conflict of interest was all over the press in 2010, 2011, right after the crisis when we had to do with those austerity budgets. He's still a UC regent. And he started that center we have one. Well, alleviate some poverty by dissolving his centers and giving that money directly to graduate students. Because the other thing that, did I cover that here? Yeah, I did cover that. So the other thing that I've been told constantly when I've had to deal with development and when I've gone, with initiatives that I want them to help find money for, they never do. They love to say this thing, and you guys should know this. Oh, donors, they're not interested in graduate education. They don't want to give money to graduate students. And we're increasingly driven by what donors want. And what donors want is like feel good stuff that will make them, that will give them tax write-offs, but never, and allow them to pacify certain forms of dissent and certain forms of organizational power that we could have, because they create a kind of reward system within the UC when they endow who can turn away like $10 million that Richard Blum wants to give us to alleviate poverty? No one can say no to that. So he gives this money to the UC, and in a way allows the people who are willing to deal with him, who are willing his money, who are willing to organize these institutions in this way, it gives them more power. And this means that at the donor table, within a philanthropically driven agenda, graduate students always sit in the back because for some reason, they don't like graduate students. I've literally heard this said to me. I've literally heard this. So because I couldn't show you the little pie of how much the UC benefits and salaries cost, you can access this through my slides. Actually, we would have saved millions. Every employer in America would save hundreds of millions of dollars altogether because we pay so much money for health insurance. And yet, so many of my colleagues, the majority of my colleagues in the PMC, did not support Bernie Sanders. And so I'm really curious about that, and I'm really angry about it. And I haven't been able to actually even process any of this because then this shutdown happened. I am actually going to stop here because I know that this is only an hour and I've gone on for way too long. It's like 5:20. Okay. So here's what I think. The PMC and the super managers and its super managers are just too entrenched. They prefer feel-goodism and philanthropy, and they don't care about the social whole. Our world is in ashes. And this new world that waits to be reborn, I'm not optimistic about, because I don't see the left being able to be organized within the UC, at least, to demand a remaking of our institutions. But this is, what I've given you guys is a very hastily put together blueprint of what I think could be possible. It's not hastily put together insofar as I've been thinking about these things for a really long time, but just for the purpose of this talk, I can go into it as deeply as I wanted to. I'm teaching 2 classes online, and the pandemic is very distracting. Okay, so I'm going to stop there.